Hi, welcome back, or welcome if you are new. My name is Lizzie. We are going to be reading another Victorian Ghost Stories in Oxford Anthology. My book is kind of bent up, I just noticed that. It's edited by Michael Cox and R.A. Gilbert. It's a book filled with a bunch of different ghost stories and tales and creepy things that happen. All that haunting stuff. Sorry if I look horrible. I actually spent the past 2 hours at the hospital and then the past 20 minutes trying to record this, but I keep getting stopped by my dog and my epileptic cat. I spent the past 2 hours at the hospital with my mom. She had what they call a pseudo seizure, basically a seizure induced by stress. She's okay though. She's asleep right now. She suffers from epileptic and pseudo seizures, basically epileptic and non-epileptic seizures. And then my cat had a seizure too. He has epilepsy. He was diagnosed at 4 days old, which I thought was odd, but the vet said was normal. Apparently they're diagnosed with them usually within the first month of their life. I just didn't think it would happen that young. But his dad has them too, so it was found out his dad and his older sister did. So we're going to read At the End of the Passage by Rudyard Kipling. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm sorry for whoever wrote this story if I pronounced your name wrong for future reference. The sky is lead and our faces are red, and the gates of hell are opened and riven, and the winds of hell are loosened and driven, and the dust flies up in the face of heaven, and the clouds come down in a fiery sheet, heavy to raise and hard to be borne. And the soul of a man is turned from his meat, turned from the trifles from which he has striven, my bad. Sick in his body and heavy-hearted, and his soul flies up like the dust in the sheet, breaks from his flesh and is gone and departed as the blasts they blow on the Calera horn by Himalayan. That's what it says, is Himalayan in the corner. It's a poem. Foreign men, each entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, sat at a table playing whilst the thermometer marked for them 101 degrees of heat. The room was darkened till it was only just possible to distinguish the pipes of the cards and the very white faces of the players. A tattered, rotten punka of whitewashed calico was puddling the hot air and whining dolefully at each stroke. Outside lay gloom of a November day in London. There was neither sky, sun, nor horizon. Nothing but a brown-purple haze of heat. It was as though the earth was dying of apoplexy. Apoplexy? From time to time, clouds of tawny dust rose from the ground without wind or warning, flung themselves tablecloth-wise among the tops of the parched trees, and came down again. Then a whirling dust devil would scutter across the plain for a couple of miles, break and fall outward, though there was nothing to check its flight, save a long low line of piled railway sleepers, white with the dust, a cluster of huts made of mud, condemned rails and canvas, and the one squat four-roomed bungalow that belonged to the assistant engineer in charge of a section of the Godhari state line and under construction. The four, stripped to the thinnest of sleeping suits, played whilst crossly and wrangling as to lead and turned. It was not the best kind of whist, but they had taken some trouble to arrive at it. Mottram of the Indian Survey had ridden thirsty and railed 100 miles from his lonely post in the desert since the night before. Landis of the Civil Service, on special duty in the political department, had come as far to escape for an instant the miserable intrigues of an impoverished native state whose king alternately fawned and blustered for more money from the pitiful revenues contributed by hard-wrung peasants and despairing camel breeders. Spurstow, the doctor of the 448 hours, while he associated with white men once more, Hummel, an assistant engineer, was the host. He stood fast and received his friends thus every Sunday. If they could come in, when one of them failed to appear, he would send a telegram to his last address in order that he might know whether the defaulter were dead or alive. There are very many places in the East where it is not good for kind to let your acquaintance drop out of sight, even for one short week. The players were not conscious of any regard for each other. They squabbled whenever they met, but they ardently desired to meet as men without water desire to drink. They were lonely folk who understood the dread meaning of loneliness. They were all under 30 years of age, which is too soon for any man to possess that knowledge. Pilsener, said Spurstow, after the second rubber mopping his forehead. Beer's out, I'm sorry to say, and there's hardly enough soda water for tonight, said Hummel. What filthy bad management, Spurstow snarled. Can't help it. I've written and wired, but the trains don't come through regularly yet. Last week the ice ran out as Londes knows. Glad I didn't come. I could have sent you some if I had known. Though, phew, it's too hot to go on playing Bumble Puppy. This with a savage scowl at Lounders, who only laughed. He was a hardened offender. Maitran rose from the table and looked out of a chink in the shutters. What a sweet day, said he. The company yawned altogether and betook themselves to an aimless investigation of all Hummel's possessions, guns, tattered novels, saddlery, spurs, and the like. They had fingered them a score of times before, but there was really nothing else to do. Got anything fresh? Said Lounders. Last week, Gazette of India, and a cutting from a home paper. My father sent it out. It's rather amusing. So apparently they're from a really, really poor time where everything is poor. Like, basically, and the king just wants money, money, money. He wants to take everybody's money, but he doesn't want to give anything back to anyone. And this was written in 1890, so of course it was before my time. I wasn't born until 1995, so it's probably before a few of your times. It's even before my mom's time. So this is an old story. So these stories have traveled pretty far. One of those vestrymen that call themselves MPS, again is it, said Spurstow. Who read his newspapers when he could get them? Yes, listen to this. It's to your address, Lounders. The man was making a speech to his constituents, and he piled it on. Oh, Bunny! This is my cat, Bunny. His name is Sunstroke, but I call him Bunny. He's as sweet and soft as a bunny. I'm sorry. I have ADHD. I can't focus on one thing at once. The man was making a speech to his constituents, and he piled it on. Oh, another kitty. Sorry, I have a lot of cats. Sassy. Look at her. She's Persian. The other one was Himalayan and Mancun. But you are a Persian little beauty. Here's a sample, and I assert unhesitatingly that the civil service in India is the preserve and the pet preserve of the aristocracy of England. What does the democracy, what do the masses get from the country? What we have step by step fraudulently annexed? I answer nothing, whatever it is, formed with a single eye to their own interest by the scions of the aristocracy. They take good care to maintain their lavish scale of incomes, to avoid or stifle any inquiries into the nature and conduct of their administration, while they themselves force the unhappy peasants to pay with the sweat of his brow for all the luxuries in which they are lapped. Hummel waved the cutting above his head. "Ear, ear," said his audience. Then Lowndes meditatively, I'd give 3 months' pay to have the gentleman spend 1 month with me and see how the free and independent native prince works things. Old Timbersides. This was his flippant title for an honored and decorated feudatory prince, has been wearing my life out this week past for money. By Jove, his latest performance was to send me one of his women as a bride. So he was going to pay him by giving up one of his women as a bride. That is horrible that you would sell somebody a woman, but these are olden days. I would never give up my child if I had one as a bride or a husband. That's that should be their choice. Then Lounders meditatively, I'd get, wait, I already read that, my bad. "Good for you. Did you accept it?" said Motram. "No. I rather wish I had now. She was a pretty little person, and she yarned away to me about the horrible destitution among the king's womenfolk. The darlings haven't had any new clothes for nearly a month, and the old man wants to buy a new drag from Calcutta, solid silver railings and silver lamps and trifles of that kind. I've tried to make him understand that he was played the deuce with the revenues for the last 20 years and must go slow. He can't see it, but he has the ancestral treasure vaults to draw on. There must be 3 millions at least in jewels and coins under his palace," said Hummel. "Catch a native king disturbing the family treasure? The priest forbid it except at the last resort." Old Timbersides had added something like 250,000 to the deposit in his reign. Where the mischief does it all come from?" said Motram. "The country. The state of the people was enough to make you sick. I've known the tacksman wait by a milch camel till the foal was born, and then hurry off the mother for arrears. And what can I do? I can't get the court clerks to give me any accounts. I can't raise anything more than a fat smile from the commander-in-chief when I find out the troops are 3 months in arrears." And old Timbersides began to weep when I speak to him. He has taken to the king's peg heavily liquor, brandy for whiskey, and headsick for soda water. That was the row of Jubela took to. Even a native can't last long at that, said Spurstow. "He'll go out. And a good thing, too. Then I suppose we'll have a council of regency and a tutor for the young prince, and hand him back his kingdom with 10 years' accumulations. Whereupon that young prince, having been taught all the vices of the English, will play ducks and drakes with the money and undo 10 years' work in 18 months. Even seen that business before," said Spurstow. I should tackle the king with a light hand if I were you, Loundus. They'll hate you quite enough under any circumstance. That's all very well. The man who's look on can talk about the light hand. But you can't clean a pigsty with a pen dipped in rose water. I know my risks, but nothing has happened yet. My servant's an old Pathan, and he cooks for me. They are hardly likely to bribe him, and I don't accept food from my true friends, as they call themselves. Oh, but it's weary work. I'd soon be with you, Spurtstow. There's shooting near your camp. Would you? I don't think it. About 15 deaths a day don't incite a man to shoot anything but himself. And the worst of it is that the poor devils look at you as though you ought to save them. Lord knows I've tried everything. My last attempt was empirical, but it pulled an old man through. He was brought to me apparently past hope, and I gave him gin and Worcester Worcester sauce with cayenne. It cured him, but I don't recommend it. How do the cases run generally? Said Hummel. Very simply indeed. Chlorodyne, opium pill, chlorodyne, collapsed nitrate, bricks to the feet, and then the burnt got. The last seems to be the only thing that stops the trouble. It's black cholera. You know, poor devils. But I will say, little Bunsey Lau, my apothecary, works like a demon. I've recommended him for promotion if he comes through it all alive. So apparently they got a lot going on, but we are actually going to stop there. You know, I make multiple videos in one day, and I do upload them all. Try not to leave anybody really hanging in this if I don't have to, because I don't like cliffhangers. They are kind of interesting, but I feel they are very, very punishing to the people that love the story and really want to know what happens. Like with my last story, I absolutely loved it. I will recommend that story to anybody. That is absolutely my favorite one. It's called The Tomb of Sarah. If you didn't check out that video, you really need to check it out. There were 3 parts to it. It is a lovely, interesting story. I wish they could make that into a very, very big book with very much detail and everything like that. Maybe some pictures made with it. That would have been extremely interesting to me. I would have sat there for days reading that because I'm a person that loves to read. I don't know if anybody else feels that same way, but I do love to read. But that is all for now. I will actually be back with a second part. So here's a bye from me and my little Himalayan kitty Angelina, or as I call her, Nina. Say bye, Nina. Isn't she pretty? Mwah.